Well, of course Devi has forgotten about her old friends because they're so boring. Hi guys, welcome back to The Shannon Show. Hello if you're new. So today's video is going to be a review of Never Have I Ever, which just dropped on Netflix. Now this was a series that I was really interested in watching, specifically because it is co-created and co-written by Mindy Kaling, and also because it was a teeny show. I love me a little teen show, so I wanted to see what Never Have I Ever was saying. So the series follows Devi, who is an Asian American teen functioning through her sophomore year in high school. She's quite a character. She has aspirations for being popular, and she even has like a realized plan of how her and her friends are going to become popular. And the series opens up hilariously. We see her praying to the Hindu god, saying, you know, she wants to go to a cool people party where there's drugs, just so she can say somebody offered her drugs and she said no. She also prays for thinner arm hair. The opening already lets us know what type of teenager she is, her mischievous energy. In terms of the characters, there's a fair bit of representation in this series. We've got gay representation, we've got POC representation, Down syndrome representation. Dev as the lead, the actress that played her did an outstanding job. I feel like we got to see a lot of complexities to Devi and her priorities and her emotions. She was still very much a teenage girl, but I feel like we did get to see a lot of her complexity. She wasn't just a one-note character. The writers and the director definitely took time to develop her character, and she was the most developed character on the show. Personally, I love Devi, even when she made what on paper is considered the wrong decisions or selfish decisions. I was here for it. Even when she was mean and horrible and being a bad friend, I was still rooting for her. I feel like in real life, I probably wouldn't want to be her friend, but as a character, love her. But yeah, I'd be really interested to hear what you guys think of Devi. And I think for me, the next most compelling character is her mother, and I feel like their relationship is also one of the more interesting parts of the series. You know, the recent widow who's trying to function without her husband, the recent widow who is trying to function without her husband and trying to control her crazy teenage daughter. She plays her role very well, and I feel like I could see elements of my own mother in her as well. My favourite scene with her was when she ended up in the therapist's office and we saw the harsh immigrant mother exterior break down. I feel like that was a really lovely scene to watch, and the scene at the end. And I really liked the glimpses that we saw of her outside of the role of her, of the strict mother. When we saw her reliving that memory with her husband on the motorbike, when she rode the motorbike by herself, I was definitely living for that shot, for that landscape shot. And the relationship dynamic between Devi and her mother, the clashes that they go through seem very organic and realistic portrayal of an immigrant mother and the child has grew up in the West. I feel like that was captured really beautifully, and as a first gen, I could relate and see similarities in some of the issues and the clashes that Devi and her mother had. In terms of the other characters, I didn't really care about them that much. I don't think the other characters were as developed as Devi and her mother was. It's very clear that Devi and the mother were the writer's favourite characters. They did a lot to create backstories for each of these characters, but again, I just didn't really connect to them on the same level that I did with Devi and her mother. I feel like there was a little bit of something with Kamala, the relative character, but again, not really much exploration there. Her friends, Eleanor, that whole mother storyline, I really just didn't care about it. I feel like there was a bit of lazy directing with Eleanor, in my opinion, and I feel like there was a bit of lazy directing going on with Eleanor. Initially, she was kind of brought in as like a laid back, chill person, but I feel like it was almost a bit too much laid back and chill, because I kind of forgot about her. It was kind of just like every time she popped up on screen, I was like, okay, oh yeah, that's supposed to be Devi's friend. And Fab's storyline as well, she had, a pretty big storyline in the show in regards to her sexuality. And again, I just really didn't care about it. There was a lack of engagement there for me, because I just kind of felt like there was a lack of direction there in terms of Fab's character, I feel like the only compelling scene with Fab in it was at the party with the whole fruit punch situation. That was the only time I felt any type of connection to her character, but for the most part there was no connection there. So when we're dealing with her storyline, I wasn't really invested. I was kind of just like, okay, I kind of want to go back to Debbie now. And because of that kind of lack of development there, lack of direction there, when there was a situation where Debbie's quest for popularity meant that she was neglecting them, I didn't feel sorry for them. I didn't care about them. I didn't care about that conflict going on with her and her friends, because I really didn't care about them. If anything, I kind of felt like, well, of course Debbie has forgotten about her old friends because they're so boring. Not necessarily pointing fingers at the actors here, because there was definitely glints from them, but I feel like their characters were neglected in comparison to Debbie was dealt with, and even how Debbie's love interests were dealt with. Actually, I did like Ben's character. I did find Debbie's nemesis Ben interesting. Not as interesting as Demi. In the beginning, I feel like they had strong nemesis chemistry, but I wasn't entirely sold on how their relationship developed. And I still feel like his development definitely could have been a bit better as well. But I liked Ben as a character, and he was probably, aside from Debbie, one of the more developed characters. I actually like Paxton's sister as well. I feel like I would love for her to have a bigger role next season if there is a season 2. But what did you guys think of the characters besides Debbie? Did you feel like you connected to them? Did you not? How did you feel about them? Now, let's get on to the love interest. So Debbie had 2 love interests in the series, or should I say somebody who was interested in her. And the first one is somebody who we saw in the trailer is Paxton, and they have a really odd relationship to begin with that starts off very superficial. There's a lot of funny moments in there, and obviously Paxton, he's the cool guy, he's on the football team, he's older but he has to repeat some classes from the lower year, so she has close proximity. He's a school hottie and she wants him, and the basis of their relationship starts off very weird because she's very honest with him and says that she likes him, but then kind of sells herself short and says, I know you won't like me, but you know, would you like to have sex with me? And that is where their relationship begins. It's very weird and wacky and funny and awkward, and slowly but surely it teases us throughout the series of something serious happening and whether Paxton will ever view Debbie as girlfriend material. And then there is Ben, who is initially her nemesis, but they start to grow a bit close and Ben starts to develop feelings, and again we see that relationship explored. And by the final episode, we're kind of left with the question of who is she going to go with and who do we want her to go with. And for me, I think it definitely has to be Ben. Ben has been a real one. He's really done her a solid this season. But what I will say is that I feel like Ben and Debbie being long-term rivals now suddenly liking each other is a bit strange to me, because for me personally, as somebody who had rivalries with people from the opposite sex at my school, it was never on some, oh my gosh, I secretly like them stuff. And in my experience, it's never on that stuff. It's usually like we are on beef and we're on beef every day. So I'm not really sure if that storyline is realistic. But either way, I still feel like Ben is the better option. I feel like in terms of what Ben has offered and what Ben has shown and what Ben has done for Debbie, juxtaposed to what Paxton has done for Debbie and what Paxton can offer Debbie, I think Ben is the better option. But what do you guys think? Are you team Paxton or are you team Ben? And what do we think about Paxton as the school hottie, the heartthrob? I think he definitely fits the aesthetic, but I think he definitely does look considerably older. Like he looks like a good 24 years old, but I think he definitely fits the look. Moving on to the narrative and the writing, I feel like the narrative was a good solid narrative in terms of the dialogue and everything, but I think some of the execution and the world building could have been executed a lot better. Specifically the school life, there wasn't really much school life building. Obviously with the characters, I've already said my piece with the characters, but the bits with those characters included, sometimes they weren't executed as well as I would have liked. I feel like it built the home life very well, the Asian community life very well, and I think if they put as much effort as they did into building the home life into the school life, I think overall the series would have improved significantly. Like I said, the opening episode was hilarious. That was done really well. The use of the narrator was actually pretty good as well, and also having the narrator turn up as a physical character as well was pretty good. There was lots of funny storylines in there. There was a lot of jokes in there. It's very upbeat. There is some emotional moments in there, but there's a good amount of balance. They do touch on various topics such as identity, specifically with Debbie and her Asian American identity. A common theme is that she often feels like she isn't Indian enough to Indian because she's grown up in America. And I think a lot of first gen kids definitely experience some type of identity crisis growing up, especially when you might not agree with certain things in your culture and stuff like that. I definitely had a few battles here and there, and I feel like some immigrant kids definitely feel like they are ashamed to say or celebrate things from traditional cultural events publicly. And we see like some of her anxiety when she's going out in traditional dress of, when she sees people she knows, you can tell that she's worried about what they're going to say. Kids can be very cool, especially at secondary school. That is like prime time for people to take the piss out of your culture. So yeah, I could definitely relate to the kind of identity imposter syndrome, or feeling embarrassed about your cultural feeling embarrassed about your cultural identity. Personally, coming from my own experience, I've never really been ashamed to say, well, I'm Congolese or stuff like that, or where my origins lie. But certain aspects, like I used to be embarrassed when my parents would speak in a different language outside. I'd be like, oh my gosh, why can't I just speak in English? Things like that, like anxiety like that. I'm definitely past that stage now. But yeah, I can definitely relate to that, and I think a lot of first gen viewers are going to relate to that. Obviously, we see a scene with her and another relative who used to not really enjoy the cultural events. And when they came back, they were like, how they appreciate the cultural events now, and how they're no longer ashamed to embrace their Indian identity. And I feel like that was a nice little moment to put in there, kind of like maybe perhaps foreshadowing Debbie maybe embracing more of her Indianness. I think it also like captures the Asian community well. There was like some drama in there. In communities, people can be really dodgy if you've divorced or you married somebody who your family didn't approve of. And then I guess there was the whole storyline with Kamala and how she had an arranged marriage, but she actually had a boo thing. And at first she was just going to go along with the arranged marriage, but then she was watching Riverdale and that was actually inspired by Betty to do what she likes. And obviously she just broke up with her boo and just pretend to go along with this arranged marriage for as long as possible. Obviously, in the end, when the guy comes through, he's definitely a better candidate than what they were expecting. What a lot of us were expecting, because I think the stereotype of like arranged marriage is that it's this young bride and this unattractive old man. But yeah, the guy that they were hooking up with was a snack. I'm not gonna lie, it was a bit of a snack. I'd marry him. I think personally for me, I would have went with the arranged marriage guy, because I feel like the arranged marriage guy had a lot more to offer, and he was fine as well. So I would have went with the arranged marriage guy. But who would you have picked? Would you have stuck with Steve, or would you have seen what the arranged marriage guy was saying? But it seems like he was, somebody who wasn't looking for like a traditional wife anyway. So yeah, it seems like Kamala hit the jackpot there, because he's an engineer, he's good looking, he's young. Okay, yes. I think production-wise, everything was pretty solid production-wise. Loved the soundtrack. In terms of the season overall, I pretty much enjoyed this season. Obviously, I did have a few issues with the writing and the narrative and the lack of development for some characters. But for the most part, I could overlook that, and I thoroughly enjoyed this series. But I think I'm not really sure if season 2 sounds appealing to me, because I feel like what is on offer is a love triangle and maybe seeing Fab's relationship play out. And I'm not really sure if that would be compelling to me as a season 2. But obviously if season 2 gets made, I'd definitely be down to watch it. But I'm kind of skeptical about where they would go with it. I think maybe they need to come up with new storylines, because the storylines that are on offer in terms of bridging season 1 and season 2 together are looking a little bit dry, to be honest. But what would you guys like to see in season 2, if there is one? Would you like to see season 1? Do you feel like season 2 could be a good season with what it is offering right now, or do you feel like maybe there needs to be a little bit of a script revision? Let me know, for those of you who've watched it. I think, taking everything into account, I'm going to give it a strong 3 out of 5. Would have loved to give it a bit more, but I think there definitely needs to be some improvements. I think it's definitely a promising season, but there definitely just needs to be some refinement here and there to make it great. I think most people who watch this are going to enjoy it. It's pretty much a 5-hour binge, so it's really easy to get through with stuff happening every single episode. So yeah, for those of you who haven't watched it, let me know if this is something that you were or are interested in checking out. If you have watched it, let me know what you thought of the series, and let me know what you thought of this review. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and if you have, don't forget to put your notification bell on so you'll know when the next review is dropping. Till next time, guys, bye.